Now, speaking of online shopping, new research has found there are trends emerging in terms of what pushes us to spend our money in the places that we do. John Mitchell, who is the Chief Executive of All Human, is with me now to discuss. John, you're very welcome to Tech Talk. I was intrigued reading this research because I think a lot of us know and accept that, shopping habits change because they were forced to change during the pandemic. But what your research is showing is that, I suppose, trends that have been building pre-pandemic for a long time now are continuing. And there's the clear emphasis on the rise of social commerce. Can you just start by telling me what exactly social commerce means?
Yeah, hi Jess, good to talk to you. You framed that perfectly because I think a lot of us know instinctively that these things are changing and that e-commerce is not a new concept, and the pandemic has set new things in motion. But to answer your question specifically, yeah, social commerce. I mean, we're calling it many things, but we're calling it the rise of social commerce. And we ran a survey just to kind of frame it in terms of its I suppose the data we set was we interviewed 1,000 Irish consumers specifically to the Irish market. Oftentimes there is a extrapolation of international Western markets onto the Irish populace. We wanted to not do that. We wanted to kind of really interrogate local biases on the consumer sense. So, and what that really bubbled through, Jess, was that there's some new kids on the block. Maybe you and I in the tech sector would have assumed maybe a couple of years back that there was a hegemony here and that Google owned search and eBay and Amazon owned shopping. That's starting to fragment a bit. And well, subjectively, people may realize that. The data for the first time in a local context is pointing that direction. I mean, just to give you some metrics around that, and what we've seen from our survey is that 57% of the 1,000 that we surveyed have bought via social platform. So this is the advent, we think, of the new shopping center is on social. So it's kind of the analogy would be the shopping center moving out to the ring road. It is shifting, and that's even more pronounced in the 16 to 24 demographic, Euro demographic, who have bought 67% of that cohort have bought via social. So that's quite a telling thing.
Is that by, sorry to interrupt you, but is that by, an influencer is demoing a toothbrush or a hair straightener, they have an affiliated link or, a promo code or something like that. I click through from their Instagram and buy that way, or is it from ads by the brands themselves? Like, is there a distinction between the two?
It's definitely influencer is a significant vector in terms of a tendency to buy. And what's more interesting, Jess, also is not only are our peers influencing buyer behavior, but that those peers also want to become brand advocates. So that's really interesting, is that personalization and peer endorsement is becoming very significant driver of conversion through social. So I mean, things like pop-ups and promos and loyalties and a bit of personalization are helping, but what's really, really powerful is peer endorsement or influence from cohorts that you interact with or follow.
Yeah, well, we did a piece on the show the week before last when I was at Web Summit, and we looked at the world of influencers and the impact they have, but also asked the question if there's a bit of influencer fatigue. Because I know myself, I kind of now scroll past and tap through the story of somebody who's trying to sell me something, not out of badness, and it's not because I'm not interested, but I'm just aware that we're kind of being sold things in a new way and it's constant. So to use your analogy of the shopping centre, I know if I'm to walk through Dundrum Town Centre right now, I will see, the storefronts, I might see some ads for promotions, but when I'm on my phone at home or when I'm on the Lewis leaving work, and I'm watching a content creator that I enjoy, they are like, that's kind of how they make money, isn't it? Is by doing these types of deals. Did anything in your research and your survey identify elements of that fatigue or ensuring that you trust the people who are influencing what you buy?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's what we saw. I think what we're seeing is that And this might be a little bit more nuanced, Jess, in the sense that it's not kind of, I'm going to call them commercial influencers who are, kind of working in a very commercial sense. What we're seeing is that respondents, up to 71% of respondees are saying that they're going to make additional purchases by virtue of peer endorsement. So it's kind of more nuanced. It's within the peer endorsement group that they are interacting with. So it's their friends, it's their family, it's referrals that they're getting from their peers, as opposed to external kind of commercial influencers. And that's a different thing. So that's a much richer endorsement of why to buy or to engage in a service.
Is that not just the word of mouth that's kind of always been there, or is it that this word of mouth, rather than happening over me and you having a coffee, it's happening because you're looking at my Instagram?
It is, and that's precisely the point. Is that you're interacting fine. There's you're like, and again, this is not kind of statistically coming through, but what we're inferring from the stats is that you are consuming media through TikTok and Instagram increasingly. That is becoming your entry point through search, and as a consequence of that, you're moving into a purchase funnel. And by and large, the consumers are consuming content that has been presented to them more often than not from their peer group. And that's again, that's what's coming through in terms of our survey. And some other things that really pop are just that desire not only to be influenced, but also to be the influencer. So it's kind of this really, really, I suppose, anthropological thing where, and certainly within a younger cohort, they're willing to kind of endorse products to their friends, and to what that extent that means, it's a very influential thing for brands to kind of cultivate that loyalty.
Yeah.
And it seems to have a higher degree of integrity, and it seems to be more organic than a forced influencer promoting a set of products or services.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm interested to see how this all plays out, because the word integrity there is something that I'm very aware of as I consume content, because you could see, and there are examples of this in the past where, in my own little world, a phone brand will pay an influencer to talk about a phone, how great it is, and they'll put a post up on Twitter saying this phone that runs Android is excellent, and then you'll see underneath it sent by Twitter for iPhone. So there's not that authenticity is not always there. Whereas if it's peer to peer, I think you trust your friends and you trust your family and you trust the people that are in your circle in general. So that obviously then carries through. One other aspect of the research that really jumped out at me was the biggest frustrations with online shopping. So the 5 biggest ones are pop-ups, sites with unclear customer charges, unclear returns process, vague delivery and fulfillment times, and poor mobile experience. The pop-up ones is bonkers. We did a piece with IA Labs, which is an extension of the NCBI, so the National Council for the Blind, and the guy that I spoke to from there was saying that when you're shopping online and if you get a pop-up for signing up to a mailing list, if you get a pop-up for cookies consent, and then if you get another pop-up saying there's a chat agent available here if you need help, if you are someone with limited vision or blind, that makes for a shockingly bad experience. But also for those of us who can see fine, it's a pain in the face to have to click X 5 times before I even get to scroll through your products.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're not wrong. And the kind of 3 big themes that came out of our survey was this concept of frictionless commerce and social disruption, which we've just discussed, and the rise of social commerce, and the other theme being brand matters. But just to your point about friction and pop-ups, I mean, things are straightened and there's hyper competitive factors in e-commerce as there are in physical retail. And what came out of our survey was that, for in the decision-making this process, nearly 60% is still relating to price, but there's still 43% in aggregate, including pop-ups, including things like ease of returns, in terms of, things like unclear shipping, any sort of kind of vagueness around returns or next day delivery. Those things in aggregate, and definitely pop-ups is a predominant thing in that, they constitute 43% of why a consumer would choose to purchase or not purchase. And I suppose what that points to is, for anybody in the e-commerce world, any provider, any business in the, offering an e-commerce solution, while you may be prohibited or have impediments to adjusting price for competition or for margin reasons, there's about 43% of things that you can do that are corrective, such as pop-ups, that can really, really improve that, what we call friction. And consumers see, consumers, as you know, Jess, they're not loyal. They'll bounce around. Search makes it easy. They will jump to different providers. So if you can make that whole purchase funnel, that whole engagement, that whole customer experience easy, clear, transparent, then you will be a winner in the future. And that's really coming through in the data that we've collated from the survey. It really pops. And the other thing that really popped out is things like customer service. Like only 14% of our respondees were happy with their online service. So there's a delta of 86% there of corrective stuff that organizations, if they're better at, that sort of, whether it's chat or AI or response metrics around, where's my return, where's my e-commerce purchase, you can really, really kind of, create competitive edge by addressing those things. And that doesn't necessitate price adjustment. And the other things that came through around friction were, just providing multiple methods of payment, make that easy. And personalization, you and I both like, when we go back and we're getting some prompts and we're getting some tips as to what you may like. And what came through on the stats as well was very, very profound. Was that 71% of all respondents said that they'd make additional purchases beyond their core purchase based on the recommendations they got. And that's to do with personalization. That's to do with, and obviously cookies are a factor in this, but they do work in terms of repeat and upsell. So yeah, they all, like friction is a broad church. It's making the experience easy, clear, transparent, and don't put any impediments up there. And that will be that. They're very corrective and addressable things that anybody providing e-commerce solutions can do above and beyond adjusting price.
Yeah, look, there's plenty of food for thought there, particularly as we come into the busiest shopping period of the year. I do hope brands are taking note and trying to make it as clear and as easy for the consumer, while also making it that bit more engaging. John Mitchell, Chief Executive of All Human, thanks so much for joining us here on Tech Talk.
Thank you, Jess. A pleasure.